Welcome to the Growth Boss Podcast, where we seek out the secrets to high-performing campaigns from some of the smartest marketers in the world. I'm your host, Jared Smith. Today I have Erik Huberman with me, and he's going to teach us how he hit $1 million in his first year of business without outside funding. Erik is the founder and CEO of Hawke Media, a fast-growing marketing consultancy he launched in 2014, scaling over 5,000 brands and generating $2.9 billion in revenue. A serial entrepreneur, Erik sold 2 e-commerce businesses by age 26, and later founded Hawke Ventures, which has invested in over 50 startups. He also created Hawke.AI, which is an AI platform, and authored the best-selling book, The Hawke Method, which outlines his marketing philosophy. Known for his bold leadership, Erik is a dynamic storyteller and thought leader, inspiring audiences with his insights on entrepreneurship, AI, and marketing strategy. Erik, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So give us the backstory. Before you actually started the company, what were you doing before and what led you to start Hawke Media?
Yeah, you mentioned it, but I built and sold a couple e-commerce companies, and then I started advising and consulting for a bunch of different brands, big and small. So I worked with like Red Bull, Verizon, HP, a bunch of startups, some mid-market companies too, and just saw that at the time there were 24,000 marketing agencies in the US and 99% of them were full of shit and had no idea what they were doing, and there was no barrier to entry. And the few that were good quickly only wanted to work on the largest brands and the sexiest companies and the biggest projects. And so if you were a small or medium business, good luck. And if you're a big company, you better be ready to commit everything. And so to me, it was like, why can't there be an agency that's the best at what they do, but easy to work with? Like, why is this a thing? Why is every agency that gets good so pretentious? And so I got sick of it and just decided to hire my own little SWAT team to kind of, solve that problem, but right in front of me, not a bigger picture thing. Just like, hey, I have these clients that need help. I'm just going to find them help. And then that quickly grew. And we realized that there was a much bigger opportunity than what was started. And, fast forward almost 12 years later, we're 250 people. I've worked with almost 6,000 companies at this point and have, really stayed true to this idea of be the best at what we do, but easy to work with.
Yeah, which I would imagine is hard to do. I was on your website before we jumped on. You've got a lot of services. I think it's easy to be the best thing at what you do when you're doing one thing, and
I
even
think
like
that's fallacy in marketing though.
Actually. Okay, go ahead.
Because the problem most people have is like, if you're really good at Facebook ads, if you don't do email marketing and you don't do your content and you don't do web design and conversion rate optimization and you don't do all the other things that feed into that, then you're just running a service. You're not building a marketing strategy. And so that is actually where I think we've run ahead of the pack is thankfully we have a top-notch Facebook team that is one of the best, that we're one of the bigger independent partners to Meta, et cetera. But we have all the things that complement that to make sure it actually performs, where you get the outperformance because we know how to convert the traffic driven by Meta. We know how to actually build the best creative to use on Meta. We know what to do with those customers once they come and visit us with content, with, again, a site that converts, all these things, because it all plays together. So it isn't in a silo. And I think that is actually what you said is what most people believe is like, well, we want someone that's just an expert in this, but that actually causes someone to frankly miss out on the critical thinking side of marketing. And so what's going to happen with, let's say you hired the top just Meta agency and all they do is Meta because of the thought like, well, then they're going to be really good. The problem is they're never going to tell you not to do it. They're never going to tell you how to make sure that you're doing the best things with them. They're going to blame your other parts. Like, oh, well, your site doesn't convert. We sent you the traffic, but then they're not able to help you. And so it's actually, you end up with not the best partner when you do that.
So if I can repeat this back to you, you guys are taking ownership over the full marketing campaign and the results for the brand.
Correct. On an a la carte basis, though, because sometimes a company has already doing a great job in certain categories. And so we're like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're doing well there, go for it. And also the things we need to focus on change. Maybe we need to redo their website, but we don't need to redo it every 3 months. So we redo it and then move on to what we need to focus on. So the answer is like, we really built this to be what an SMB or a growth stage company needs, which is that flexibility, that nimbleness, that sort of innovative nature, that tech enablement to really focus on how do we get the best results here, regardless of the channel or the platform.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's go back to the beginning. You didn't start, I assume, by offering 20 services. What was kind of the unique differentiator in those early days?
Oh, I mean, it wasn't 20, but it was, so it was just me acting as a fractional CMO. And so I was trying to find all these different agencies and service providers to plug the holes they needed. And then immediately it was Facebook search, email, influencer, web design. It was all the core things that I knew most businesses needed right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And how did you generate business in those early days? Were you out
Yep.
networking, running Google ads?
Nope. I was networking all the time. I was at an event 5 days a week. I was going 5 to 7 days a week. Every opportunity I got to go meet people, I took it. And I still do. I mean, I'm still pretty active in that way.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time, but that's by far the best way to generate business. Meet people. You build a lot of trust right away. People aren't going to, we always talk about here, we're not here to convince people that they need marketing. I'm not trying to educate people on the value of marketing. That's not my business. My business is to explain to people why we're the best and why to go with us over anyone else. They already know they need marketing, but why us? And so meeting someone in person, them talking to me, thankfully I do know what I'm talking about and I've had some success here. That goes a lot further than a Google ad. So
yeah,
which also works for us now. We do a ton of advertising, but for a long time it was just me hand-to-hand combat, so to speak.
Yeah. And how has your marketing, your personal USP marketing message changed over the years? I noticed on the website, you guys right there, big and bold, fractional CMO. That's what you referenced as kind of where you were at in the early days. Was that honestly how you positioned yourself, or has that message evolved a little bit?
So the trademark is your outsourced CMO, and we own that trademark. And that has been our tagline from the beginning. We changed it for a year when we thought we wanted to go up market like everyone else. And then I realized that I love the market we're in and screw that. So we put it back on. The only reason for that is I found that the insecurity of a CMO is directly correlated with the size of the company. And so the bigger you get, the more insecure they are. And so when we tried to go for these Fortune 2000s and had outsourced CMO, I remember getting on the phone with a big fashion holding company, and the CMO gets on and goes, first thing she says is, "You're outsourced CMO. Are you trying to take my job?" I thought she was kidding. So my response was, "Is it that easy?" She wasn't kidding. Never talked to her again. So that's the vibe there. But when you talk to small and medium businesses, thankfully the heads of marketing usually just care about building a great business. So the tagline resonates because they understand what it means. In terms of what's changed, I would say the value of our business went from navigator to execution, where people when we started, nobody knew what the fuck was going on. They were all trying to figure out where to put their money, which ad channels actually worked, et cetera. So it was us helping navigate this landscape was the biggest value and what people needed. And now people kind of get what's going on for the most part. And it's more who's going to get this done and get it done right. And so that's our messaging and positioning has changed that way. The overall your outsourced CMO still remains, but the way we talk about it, the way we advertise, the messaging that we have, the salesmanship, it's more about why we're the best to help them execute, not here don't worry, we're gonna help you figure this out.
Yep. I want to talk a little bit about the personnel side of that first year.
Sure.
It was just you to start. You hired people. I'm sure there were some mistakes that you made. I'm sure there were some really good wins that you had. Walk us through that a little bit and what you would do differently today.
Yeah, and that doesn't change. We still have many mistakes and great hires too.
Yeah.
So I hired 7 people immediately because I had built a consulting practice that was made enough money to hire people, and I paid them each $3,000 a month, and with upside based on what they were going to manage. So again, I mentioned a Facebook marketer. There was no Instagram marketing at that point. So Facebook marketer, an email marketer, a web designer, an outsourced CMO. And I basically said, Facebook marketer, you're going to get $3,000 a month and then a piece of everything you're managing. And I found pretty quickly, I thought that was great because sky's the limit. Let's build this together. You can manage a ton of money and make a ton of money. Turns out most people are not entrepreneurs. They don't want the ebb and flow of their own income. And so only one person in that first batch lasted 6 months. After 6 months, they were all gone. But I'd built the company large enough at that point that I didn't need to do this elastic, flexible payment. And I just paid salaries. And that worked a lot better. And so, started the year at 7 people, ended the year at 17. But only one of them was part of that group of 7. And he became my business partner.
Okay. And I mean, talk to me a little bit further about this. Are you going out poaching from other companies, or are you just kind of throwing an ad out let's just kind of see who comes in? What's that?
In that first year?
Yeah, in that first year, but also now. I'm curious.
Now we have a recruiting team. We're poaching. We're bringing in. I do generally like someone that applies better just because if they're proactively wanting to work here, there's just a little sign. That's nothing against people that we've been able to poach successfully because some have worked out. But there's just something like the dynamic as the owner and as the company is a little better when they're seeking us out first. But sometimes we need a great person and we got to go find them because they're not coming to us. So it goes both ways. Back then, I mean, that first 7 was arm's reach as arm's reach could be. It was mostly people I'd worked with over the past few years in e-commerce. Just said, hey, come join me. And then I can't remember where we put up job ads originally, but our next batch of hires were actually pretty in-network, sort of friends of friends and family of friends. But that batch, because we then had an idea of what we were looking for a little better, that batch lasted for years and years and years and years. Some of them are still here. And that was almost 12 years ago.
Okay. I would like for you to talk a little bit on the topic of innovation. Obviously, we live in a world that's changing all the time. We've got AI that's blowing things up in a good way. How do you drive innovation in your organization? Is this something where you're just, constantly bringing it up, wanting people to come forward with new ideas? How do you drive that?
Yeah, I always say culture trickles down from the top. And so whatever I'm prioritizing, what's being prioritized. Thankfully, we've built enough systems at Hawke that force innovation that I don't have to try to draw it out of people because not everybody wants to. Like most people want to do what they're doing, not change it, not shake it up, just focus and go heads down. And so it's disruptive to innovate. And I don't mean disruptive to the market, I mean internally, it's disruptive to their day to day. And so, but because of our venture fund, we're constantly investing in vetting new technologies. We're constantly introducing new technology to the team. I also always want to know I get almost anxious about the idea of falling behind. So we've always been ahead of the game. We started developing our own AI systems 10 years ago, maybe 11 now. It's been a long time. So I've always been watching how the market's moving, trying to anticipate it and not overinvest in seeing around a corner because I think that's where a lot of people screw up. We don't have a crystal ball, but at least be aware of it and keep a pulse on it. And so that combination, so many people don't do that because they get comfortable where they are, that you end up, the gap between you and the next person gets wider and wider and wider and wider when you stay on top of it. So then that gives a positive feedback loop that, we invested in a platform for GEO, which is AI optimization, search optimization, and go figure, it's the most sought after service ever now. And we've been doing it for a little while, have case studies, know what we're doing. And so that's become the spearhead into a ton of companies for us because we are one of the best at it because we're one of the first movers on it and we're owner in the platform.
Yeah, amazing. Talk to us about the systems that drive innovation. You said it's kind of part of the systems that you have in place. Walk us through that.
What I mean by systems is more just the way the business functions inherently causes innovation. But again, we have a venture fund that is investing in new technology. So that is by nature integrated with Hawke Media because that's why our venture fund is compelling is because we basically invest in tools that all our clients can use to build their businesses. It's all the complementary tools to what we're doing. So we always introduce our team and clients to the tools we're investing in because if they don't like it, then we shouldn't invest. And if we do invest, we want them all to onboard onto it. So that forces technological innovation constantly. And then I just constantly emphasize with our leadership, what's the next thing? What are we putting out there next? And I'm always looking to what's next. And that just comes inherently with me. And that's where the culture piece comes in. I just don't sit still very well. I hate the idea of running the same thing over and over again. And so the moment things feel stable, I'm looking to break it basically.
Yeah, I get that. Talk to me about your role as a CEO in those first couple of years. And then what does that look like now? How is it different?
Yeah, first 3.5 years, I was a salesperson. So I was out making, as my business partner put, I was making promises and the team was delivering on them and we were figuring it out. But yeah, I was out and about all the time. And still to this day, I'd say a third of my time's waving the flag, beating the drum, showing up at events, going to conferences, speaking, doing personal brand, being on a podcast, all these kind of things. And a third of my time is strategic, working with the leadership team. How are we improving the way we service clients? How are we innovating? How are we solving problems, dealing with, I'm watching problems that my executives aren't solving and jumping in and being like, all right, what are we going to do to fix this? And then a third of my time is really focused on growth. How are we scaling our sales team? How are we driving more growth? How are we scaling our M&A practice so that we can really continue to grow the thing?
Yeah, I would love to learn about your M&A practice. I noticed you guys have acquired quite a few brands. Talk to me about why did you decide to go that route? And then what has that looked like? What have you been looking for?
Yeah, it came from, it happened organically. It started with a company, a friend owned an agency and wanted to sell it. And we didn't know what that meant, but we struck a deal and figured it out on our own without knowing how this is supposed to work. We did it our way and it worked. And then it happened again a year later with a different business. And it just happened over the years where we had these small acquisitions and we figured out a model. And then I was like, I think this is working. So we should do more of these. This has been a good way to get talent, to get scale, to get clients, like to get expertise in new areas. So we started leaning into it. And then we really turned a corner. I'd say 2023, we acquired 4 agencies and really started to build a process for it. 2025 or 2024, excuse me, we acquired 10 agencies. And the idea being, let's break this thing and figure out what we need to know and how to do this at scale. And then 2025, we've already got 2 done and 2 more under contract. We slowed it down a little bit because we realized we're being frankly more particular because now we know what success can look like. And so, we've just continued to build that as an aspect of our growth and how we're scaling the business.
And what have you learned along the way as far as like which types of cultures have meshed with yours, agencies? What exactly are you looking for now that's changed since, your first acquisition?
Well, the biggest thing is there's 90,000 marketing agencies in the US. And there's this sweet spot for us and terrible spot for them of like the $1 to $5 million revenue agency where the founder is doing everything. The head of sales, marketing, partnerships, accounting, legal, client success, everything, HR. Yep. And we go, hey, why don't we and we look for growth-oriented founders that want to just grow the thing, that are getting bogged down by all the other shit, and go, hey, we're going to free you up to just focus on growth. If that's what you want to do and you actually do it, it's going to be way more lucrative than what you're doing right now. And why don't we partner up and do this? And that's the idea. It's like, how do we free up a great agency founder that's really growth-oriented and incorporate them into Hawke? It adds a great skill set. So we usually get a bunch of great talent from it. And now that founder can go really grow. And when that clicks, it's really good for everyone. So yeah.
Love that. Very cool. I want to talk a little bit about the future. You said you don't have a crystal ball, but I'm still curious where you see things going in the next 12 to 24 months. What are going to be the hot services for agencies? Where do business owners need to be looking to grow their company next?
Yeah, I mean, this is the funny thing is the 2 best channels to advertise online still are Google and Facebook and Meta. So like that's been for 15 years. So the idea that it's changing every year is, I feel like it's this way in a lot of consultative industries where everyone wants to overcomplicate it to make themselves feel more important. And the answer is it's pretty consistent. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this TikTok spin out into the US and how that affects the algorithm and how that thing works. But I still think TikTok's going to be a really interesting platform. GEO, I think, is going to be hyper important because people are more and more looking to LLMs for search than Google. Yeah. So you need to stay on top of that. That's it. I don't think it's going to be much more complicated than that. I don't really buy the Meta replacing all creative. I think that's going to be a really dumb move. I keep saying it's their second dumbest move since changing their name to Meta. And so we'll see how that works out for them. And when I say that, it's a successful company. They're going to be successful. I just think they're going to end up rolling that back.
Yeah.
And so...
And no company makes 100% perfect decisions. But totally, I'm with you on that.
Still, changing their name to Meta was a dumb move. I'm not saying it's a dumb company. That was a dumb move.
100%. Yeah. Let's talk about GEO. For those who aren't familiar with it, explain a little bit about what that is. And then how are you guys getting websites ranked in these LLMs?
Yeah, so it's got some similarities to SEO. You just have to know. So GEO is just basically you're trying to make it so that when, like, if I ask ChatGPT what's the top marketing agency in LA, I want Hawke Media to show up, and generally we do. The interesting thing about LLMs is they are smarter than search. They actually cater the results to the person asking. So it will definitely say Hawke Media if I ask. It might not if you do, depending on your prior searches. So we invested in a software called Gumshoe that actually helps analyze how you're ranking in these LLMs and gives you feedback so that you can build content and PR and other strategies around creating more content out there that will feed that LLM what it's looking for. Because they do function similarly to the search crawlers, but they're actually crawling way more than search crawlers.
Yeah. And how about the process to get ranked? And I'm curious about this from 2 different perspectives because I've seen people promote GEO, services where they're talking about, hey, basically writing articles so that the LLM references those articles. But I think we both know you're not going to get a lot of traffic if your article is referenced at the bottom of some the ChatGPT search. However, the more valuable search is going to be, like you referenced, who are the top marketing agencies in LA? How do you show up for that particular search?
Yeah, it's not one specific, like just show up on Reddit and you'll do it. It's having so much content and engagement out there and PR out there that highlights the fact that you are, let's say it's, again, a local agency, that you're in LA, that you are the top agency in LA, and that enough things say that have been ranked as credible and seem recent enough, and also resonate with that specific person that's searching, because is it the content that person digests? All those things matter. And so it's a lot more nuanced, but that's why, again, you need a tool that's gonna walk you through, here are the places where you can start to move the needle on that specific.
Love it. Sure. Awesome. Erik, thank you so much for being here today. I know you're busy, you've got full day, but really do appreciate your time.
Yeah.
For people who want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
@/Erik Huberman on any social channel. And if you want, Hawke Media will always do a free audit on a company. It's just at www.hawkemedia.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.